to Three Crosses Farrier Company. I'm Caleb, and this is the second part of a two-part video series we've done on trimming this gelding right here. In the first part, we did the front hooves, and in this second part, we're going to be doing the back hooves. The back hooves weren't quite as bad as the fronts. They were definitely bad, but they weren't rockering up off the ground. The distortion wasn't quite as extreme. I sometimes think that we as humans don't deserve the horse. The horse is probably one of the most forgiving animals in the world, in my opinion. They're not only forgiving with their personality, with our training methods, our lack of training methods, but they're forgiving in the hooves as well. They will adapt to almost anything. And when they're not taken care of, they will adapt to that. And if they're trimmed improperly or trimmed incorrectly, they'll adapt to that too. It will eventually catch up with them. It will eventually shorten their life. The example I would use, probably an extreme example of bad trimming practices, is some of the videos on here with the Chinese farriers or some of the farriers like in India. Some of the stuff that they're doing is just, in my opinion, horrific. Like, they use those big knives. They're not being real mindful of anatomy, cutting them super short. In some cases, they even bleed them. And yet the horse survives. And I think that is probably one of the most amazing things about the horse, is their adaptability and the fact that they are so forgiving of humans. Now, in the first video, I talked about the fact that I suspected founder. The horse had a crusty neck. He was overweight. You'll see right here that he has some solar bruising right in the toe. You'll also see that the white line is wider and is distorted. That's another indication of founder. This horse probably needs to be seen every 5 to 6 weeks, and it will probably take us 3 to 4 appointments to really get him dialed in and really get rid of the distortion and get his hooves back in shape. There's no reason that he can't be ridden again. I actually had several comments asking if he could be ridden again, and I think that the outcome for this horse, with proper care, absolutely, he can be ridden again. It disappointed me. I have not seen this horse since I took this video. It's been probably 2 months. The owner has not reached out again. I actually reached out to the owner and never heard back. It's extremely disappointing. I can only care as much as owners will allow me to care. And in this case, like, this horse really has a lot of potential. I actually liked him. He was super green. He was struggling to hold still for me, but he's a good horse and not a mean bone in his body. And I think that goes back to the fact that horses are so forgiving. I've had comments in the past about weakening or taking away the integrity of the hoof wall. What I'm doing right here is getting rid of distortion. So I can see the hoof wall and the white line. I'm looking at that, looking at the distortion there. I'm rasping it so it's even all the way around. And then from the top, I'm rasping to that mark. This way I ensure that I don't take away the integrity or thin out the hoof wall, making it weak. You have to address flare. You have to. Otherwise, the hoof horn will continue to grow away or in a manner that we don't want it to. It will become distorted, and it will remain distorted unless we address the flare. And in this case, we have a ton of flare. The hoof wall is extremely distorted. So now we're going to do the second hoof. I was kind of mad at myself because I literally forgot to turn the camera on when I started trimming the hoof. Sometimes I get so focused on what I'm doing with the hoof that I forget all about the camera. And that's the way it should be. I should be more focused on the horse than I should be on the camera, but it's still annoying when I forget to push that play button before I start work. it would be really neat eventually to have someone film for me. I think that would make the content just that much better, and then I could focus on the horse entirely and not have to worry about the camera. So we're going to take the rasp, we're going to flatten the hoof. Here you can see that the white line is stretched. If you look at the hoof wall and the toe, you can see it's not only is it distorted, but if you look right behind that white, kind of, you see some pigmented hoof wall, and then you see some white hoof wall, and then you see that darker, almost bruised section behind it. That's the white line, and that white line is distorted, it's stretched. That's a classic sign of founder. It can also be because he was so long that it stretched, but in this case I would bet on founder, especially with all of the other signs that he has going on. Laminitis or founder in horses can be caused by a couple of different things. The most common one that I see is metabolic. Metabolic founder or laminitis is basically the horse equivalent of diabetes in humans. One of the medications they use to treat diabetes in humans is actually the same medication that they use to treat horses with acute laminitis. Laminitis is the horse's inability to process sugar. It shows up in a couple of different ways. One of the ways being overweight. They'll have kind of a crusty neck, or their neck kind of bows up, almost like a stud horse. And the other and the biggest problem is their hooves. It shows up there. We have a stretched lamini wall, rotation of P3, the pedal bone, or sinking founder is another way that it happens, where the pedal bone begins to move towards the bottom of the foot without rotation. Whether it's rotational or whether it's sinking, it's extremely serious for these horses. It has to be managed. One of the biggest ways that we manage founder beyond putting on shoes and cushion and support is to actually change their diet. You cannot manage founder without managing a horse's diet. So what we'll do a lot of times is we will soak the hay in water. So you put the hay in a hay bag, put it in a big bucket of water, leave it overnight. Next morning you pull it out of the bucket, leave the bucket, hang the hay net, and they eat that hay. By soaking the hay, it gets rid of all the sugars. You cut out grains, cut out anything that's high in sugar. All of these things help manage the laminitis in the horse's hooves and will help alleviate a lot of their problems. One of the things we'll do as farriers is we'll actually drop the hoof and let the horse stand on it. We do that for a couple of reasons. Sometimes the horse needs a break, but also we do this to see angle, how the horse is standing on it. Is he standing on it higher on one side? Is there anything that we need to change before we call it a day? These hooves are still too long. There's a lot of foot that needs to come off. He was going back out to the pasture, and I did not want to cut him super short. But overall, they look a lot better. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed the video.